Thank you all. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I think I would say that the industry is at towards a paradigm shift in terms of how it's shaping up. There are too many levers driving transformation, and we can't have a better panel to kind of address some of the questions. So hopefully this session is insightful. I'll start off or kick off with asking the first question. I spoke about transformation and changes. How do you see the customer segments changing across the wealth and capital market segment? Do you see a paradigm shift in customer segments? Priti, do you want to take that first?
Absolutely. I think launching a platform for women itself is a witness to saying that there is a paradigm shift happening here. We're talking about 560 million women of the country, 120 million women using UPI, but less than 1 million women actually investing their money. So I think that itself says that, that 120 million women using UPI are already digitally active. So I think it's probably the perfect timing to sensitize them to investing and saving their money. The second piece is, credit to our government for the entire infrastructure that has been created, whether it is, UPI, Jadhav, all of these have democratized, enabled digitization, democratization of investment. So I think that just allows for the world to participate. And I think wealth has got different, and we're all here from different sort of segments, but it has a different connotation for every segment. We work with women. We have about 500,000 women on the platform, and I think that is again witness to the fact that this is an emerging segment of investors, wealth creators. And I think I don't even need to say that women make for great investors. I think just a few stats that over this conversation I'd love to share. But I think India as a country, we're in a great place for every individual to actually start creating wealth. And technology has just made it so much more. I mean, that opportunity is just like opened up tremendously.
Great. Thanks, Priti. Sandeep, would you want to, you've been at the fulcrum of having and addressing multiple segments to an extent that you've kind of redefine the new HNI going into affluence. So it'll be good to get your views on the changing customer segments as well.
So Saurabh, I think one thing which is very interesting and probably different from how the world was in India, say 10 years ago, is that there is a clean stratification that's beginning to happen in terms of the client base. For example, Pravin here, his app serves super traders, and who would have thought that a few years ago there can be a dedicated platform for that? We serve the first generation wealth creator, who in their lifetime have created wealth. So I think some of these segments are becoming very clear and very sharp. And each of these revenue pools and profit pools are becoming meaningful for players like us to go after that particular segment. For example, in the category that we operate in, we expect there to be nearly 1 crore crorepati households in India, totaling to about 5 lakh crore of financial assets that we will be able to target. Within this segment, the orientation or the default has now become financial assets, as opposed to real estate or gold, which it was when I started my career in wealth management. So some of these trends are very big. How we serve each of these segments needs to be uniquely thought of. In our case, there's a combination of human interface with technology. Yeah. In other segments, it will be purely technology driven. The area for work for most of us is to deliver access. And India is an access-starved market pretty much in every segment, wealth management or the high net worth wealth management being one of them.
Thanks. Really good to get some insights on your segment of customers, which are completely different from what Priti or Sandeep mentioned.
Thanks. I think I just realized I was speaking to Priti backstage, and she's a part of Rathi group. And if you see the transformation, right, today, if you really look step back and see, today's wealth players are yesterday's brokers. Okay, so we have a broker, we have a wealth team, and we also have someone who has lived the entire life cycle. So I think the transformation is not just happening in customer mindsets, okay, but the segments are being upskilled Okay, so if you look at today's wealth, all large players in wealth, okay, they have been the past brokers, and suddenly this category is individually becoming so big, so that no one thought about building a platform for traders. Okay, we're the only one which is focusing on traders. Okay, earlier the graduation was stockbrokers becoming a wealth platform, but today we have platforms like Dezerv starting from scratch. Okay, so that's evident. Some additional stats just to make sure. Okay, while we are looking at the markets. We also have to appreciate the technology that we have in underlying. Okay, so we have National Stock Exchange as the largest derivative exchange in India for the last 5 years. So in the volumes that they process is more than all of the exchanges combined put together. So technology has scaled, obviously creating access, obviously creating infrastructure, creating networks, okay, which all of us are able to use and ride on top of that. Yeah. And it is making smaller niche segments more accessible. There is a TAM getting created, okay, which we get a chance to focus on and build upon that. And this is a very vibrant economy, especially because now at this point of time, WealthTech and InvestTech is probably the hottest segment that's getting into the picture after payments and lending.
Absolutely. No, thanks a lot, Pravin. And while we spoke about the ecosystem, I think, Sandeep, it will be good to pivot on that with the ecosystem available, what are some of the strides that you are making on the digital front? You could just kind of throw some light on that. All of you, I think the uniqueness of this panel is that I can ask the same question to all of them with different answers coming in. So it'll be good to get these insights from you.
Saurabh, the interesting thing about wealth tech is that most of the tech is below the water, or like in an iceberg, you see only the tip of the iceberg, which is what the client experiences, but a lot of the work that happens behind the scenes, right? So for example, in our case, how we are able to onboard a portfolio management customer without physical signatures or vetting signatures was a big area of investment for us. How we are able to migrate existing portfolios to our platform, how we are able to manage tens of thousands of portfolios all at the same time using technology, and which has two elements of what we created called one model, which is how we run the portfolio, but also the execution platform, which are traditionally built on top of human operations teams executing it. So a large part of that experience has been behind the scenes. There are a couple of strong enablers in the ecosystem which are helping this. One is the whole KYC platforms, how they are evolving, but also most importantly, how account aggregator is moving. The ability as a portfolio manager to be able to view the entire financial history of a client, to be able to assess what is the right portfolio to create for them, is something that even in the offline world, sitting across the table with a client, I wouldn't be able to do. So I think that's something which is transformational happening in India.
Priti, you want to throw some light about?
Absolutely. So I think, we're all aware, and I think being in this field for so long, money management is a behavioral science. And there's no denying that. And I think while, Sandeep has already highlighted a lot that is, today technology can pick up. I think what's unique, or how we've used technology, is also pick up qualitative inferences about our users. So the core of what we do is a community. Now a woman comes there and she speaks about her challenges, opportunities, what can she do differently. And all of these behaviors, when she comes on and she says, I am planning, I want my child to get this education, and how can you help me? So these are things that we actually sort of pick up and supplement the quantitative data that we have, and use this qualitative to actually understand her behavior even better. And then use technology to hyper-personalize. I mean, there was a time when, one of the biggest friction points we've realized for women is actually to go to an advisor. They just don't get up and say, I want to speak to an advisor. So how can technology make it less intimidating and yet hyper-personalize it? How can, we've used it very effectively to embed everything that comes her way is as per her behavior. If she's looking at savings, then making investment a part of savings. So that's how we've looked at it. And I think, of course, there's AI now that helps us on a lot of fronts. We don't use it for prediction, but I think we use that very effectively in terms of understanding user behavior, and then sort of making a woman do that journey on the platform.
It's interesting. I want to hear from Pravin, and I want to come back to both of you asking a few follow-up questions. Pravin?
So for us, the journey is how do you make trader enter and exit market as quickly and as fast that he would expect it to be. I'm sure some of you would know, okay, earlier when people want to do a large trade, they probably have to do a block deal or they have to figure out how to get the capital. In our cases, okay, we are able to see, and then the kind of things that we have built also, okay, are very, very trader focused. So for example, till I think 2 years back, okay, everyone believed that it's very difficult to build a own trading system. Okay, typically when you take an order as a broker, the way a bank has a CBS, which is central banking system, a broker has something or has an OMS and RMS, and we realized we're not able to innovate beyond a point of time if we don't own that piece of technology. We started work on that some 24 months back, okay, and it's been last 6 to 9 months that we have been moving our transactions on the platform. It doesn't matter for a normal investor, but for a trader, it matters a lot. So where an industry average for processing a transaction is roughly 125 milliseconds, okay, on our platforms, we are able to process 90% transactions in less than 25 milliseconds. So that's one part to it. Okay, the other part is, okay, a trader looks at charts, a trader looks at prices. How do you make sure that you are the first ones there? He sees that first visible tick, okay, decipher on your chart or on your platform and do all the analysis that you will want to do, okay, at this point of time. So what I'm trying to tell you is, okay, execution matters a lot, okay, tech reliability matters a lot for traders. There's a lot of analytical information which advisors or stockbrokers of yesterday years were giving you as insights, as data, as analytics, okay, how the market is moving, what are support levels, what are resistance level. Today, if you're on a platform, all of that is available to you for free and for real time. So the basic hygiene today was a very high value, okay, very high value, very payable advisory that was happening just 2 years back. Okay, so technology is commoditizing crazy levels of informations. Okay, to that extent now, when we also look at a few things, let's say today, I'll just say, let's say some stock is just up 8%. Okay, we are trying to internally try to figure it out, hey, what's happening around? Okay, earlier it was, hey, there's a news and the news reflects on the markets, it comes on newspapers, and then you see the repercussion of that, either positive or negative next day. Today we don't have time for that. Today we are reacting much faster. So we work on both the sides. Is there a news that's affecting a particular stock, okay, or the volumes or the values of that? Or is there a value and then we go back and check, is something happened in the market? So it's more real-time basis than it was ever.
No, I'm sure. I think what we thought was transformation, digitalization 2 years back is baseline now. So I think that's been a radical shift. But Sandeep, if I talk about the adoption, right? I mean, we have, as you mentioned, that what you see on top is a tip, but from an adoption perspective, for Priti as the end investors, for you, it's your RM. How has that journey been in terms of adoption of technology and digital tools?
In technology, Saurabh, I feel like most problems are adoption problems, right? So we can all build the best technology, but if people don't use it for various reasons, I think it's a challenge. The problem that we have faced is that getting people who are experienced to adopt to new ways of working is obviously challenging, and you have to balance it out with the right nudges, incentives for them to adopt to it. There's also an interesting thing that we're able to create a new cadre of wealth managers, relationship managers who don't have the baggage of the past and are able to sort of use these platforms much easier than somebody who's been in the industry. This for the first time, we've hired nearly 25 folks straight out of campus, training them in our vision, so that we are able to help them adopt technology and interface with the new wealth creator in a whole different way. Talk to them using technology tools as opposed to necessarily picking up the phone or interacting in person. So some of those things are interesting, but I think it's a hard challenge, something that we have to work through.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Sandeep. And Priti, how do you take it from your investors adopting to the digital-only platform that you've created?
So I think we have a little bit of an edge there because women have adopted to digital, whether it is payments, whether it is the digital infrastructure really well. Because like I said, the minute the human interface went away when engaging with financial products, it somehow became just easier to adopt. And I think, in fact, we did this session with RBI Innovation Hub once when we were talking to a group of youngsters. These were all boys and girls in the age group of 18 to maybe 20, 22. And interestingly, when we asked what are the financial apps that you have on your, on your phone, and it was interesting to see that everybody, men and women, had a payment app, right? And to us, I think that was that aha moment of saying that women have taken to, of course, the boys had trading apps and they had, I'm not going to name which ones, but some of them had done as well. But I think women, payment was the first thing they took very intuitively. And I think we are very, they're there on the social media. I think all of these have enabled us to sort of use or help them adopt or take over technology very easily. I think for us, the great pull has always been community. I think we've also, like we said, gamified it, built it in a way that we've made money very, very sort of fun to work with as opposed to intimidating. So I think that's where we've actually worked very hard in terms of removing all friction points and making it easy, making it, I wouldn't say easy, but making it more engaging. And I think, to me, I think technology, and interestingly, we found as we go to, say, even the B30, etc., tiers of the country, we find technology is actually the first thing that we as Indians have adopted. So there I don't find a challenge. And also you have to keep in mind, these are most of the women that come on our platform are first-time investors. So it's even easier. So you're not like asking them to change any sort of existing investment behavior.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's good to know, because what Sandeep comes across when he said that they are probably acclimatized to wealth, but new to wealth management. And for you, it's largely first time. So I think it's the adoption, when you say, it's very heartening to hear that the adoption has not been a challenge. But Pravin, it will be good to hear from you, considering the nature and the segment is completely different. How does that stack up for you in terms of adoption?
We are focused on trading community, and we are focused largely on people who know markets. So unlike most of the categories like payment analytics that you want in the fastest possible way that you'll ever look at it, on customer side of things, almost 30% of all queries that are coming on our platform are answered by AI-driven bots, okay, and consumers don't even know about it. The rest, what we are able to do is, we have a small project that we run with Amazon. It's a pilot that's been running for last 9 months now. Yeah. We are seeing some results now, which is after a call, it's been taken from a customer. In fact, during a call is going to be after some point of time. But today, the moment a call with the customer ends, okay, we are able to get what the sentiment of the customer at the starting of the call, at the end of the call, what the sentiment of the customer, of our agent, okay, when the call was happening, and post it. And we are able to create an analysis, okay, which is available to the agent for feedback within 30 seconds of the call getting over. So I think technology is helping us to not just innovate or create efficiency from a consumer side of things, but also a lot of internal processes which we never thought we would be able to get into.
Thanks a lot, Pravin. And you touched upon profitability, financial performance. We spoke a lot about adoption, customer engagement, customer experience, but let's take a step back, looking into your own entity and looking at how are we driving technology from, it's a competitive market. So how are we driving technology to have lean operations or kind of create more efficiencies within the operations? Sandeep, would you want to take that first?
So Saurabh, I think in the space that we operate in, we cannot operate today anymore without investing heavily in the systems. Pravin and I were chatting outside. A large part of our capital investment happens in terms of, let's say, building our operations side. Traditionally, most wealth management firms have had more than a few hundred people in the operations side. And they need to, because every transaction so far required human intervention. For us, what we've been able to do is to ensure that the end-to-end execution of the portfolio happens now without any human intervention. There are elements of human intervention which regulators require us to have, let's say a dealer in a portfolio management, but even the dealer's role we've automated such that they're only acting as a checkpoint. For instance, like today at last count, we're able to execute 8,000 transactions a day on the back of a 5 to 6 member team. Now, going back 5-7 years, I wouldn't have even thought that this is possible.
Yeah.
The problem with that is, and to your earlier question on profitability, that some of this shows up in efficiency over time.
Yeah.
You don't get instant gratification or immediate returns or return on invested capital. And that's the call that all of us as capital allocators need to make, is that whether should I be doing it or should I run along as we are and then maybe introduce some of those things later.
Thanks, Sandeep. That's really insightful. And Priti, if I have to talk about the operations that you would be slightly different in terms of the segment, but how are we driving technology to have efficient operations?
So I think, and I think this is true for all of us, when you're a startup, you have no choice but to be lean and agile, right? That's your mandate. So I think that itself sort of pushes you towards looking at solutions that are far more, cost effective. I think for us, the added sort of pressure which worked very beneficially was that for women, it was very important for them to get transparency of their entire transaction, right? If I put in money now, where does it go? Where does it hold? How much is it worth, etc. All of that actually pushed us to say, okay, let's look at technology which makes it, very agile and instant, right? And that sort of actually, the ripple down effect was that we went very lean on operations. We didn't need to have used technology. We used a lot of, and technology incidentally, and we are here, I call this the Disney world of fintechs. I think there is so much that is available that is open source that you can really use to your cost advantage. So I think for us, it's been more sort of limited amount of money, lots to do, that pushed us to do a lot. But I think we're very happy because I think it's a great sort of journey that we've done. And now you know that you can, for example, women need a lot of high touch, sort of that feeling of high touch, that I'm in safe hands, what we call the white glove feeling, right? Using technology to build that without really having people there, I think has been one of our biggest wins.
Thanks, Priti. And Pravin, any thoughts in terms of?
I think Sandeep, Priti covered a lot, but let me just touch the other aspect, which is about the choices someone has to make. Yeah. So when we started, okay, it's like classic 2020, 21, 22. Unlike being resource constrained, that time was flush with money. Okay, so we started the company in 4 months. We had a seed round of 25 crores. 9 months into that, okay, we raised a Series A like 185 crores. So we are flush with money. But what I'm trying to tell you is, unlike startup journeys that people would want to go and raise large teams and spend a lot of money on customer acquisition, okay, build a brand before there's a product or before there's a business. We sat on the money, okay, we launched our product, we went to the market, we realized that no one wants another broker. It's a very competitive industry. There are 300 brokers. At that point of time, we were the 300th person, okay, and no one wanted to use any other platform because, hey, I'm happy with what I'm using, okay. So the journey for us was making a choice of not doing anything wrong, okay, or not doing anything which is a template of spending money, raising larger rounds, okay, do a follow-on rounds, etc. So we operated with what Priti mentioned, okay, is resource crunch, okay, while there was money in the bank, but we decided to go and meet the trader group that we want to build a product on. And also, I think apart from what Sandeep and Priti just mentioned, I think a lot also happens with choices the founding teams and founders do really make about it.
In case you're still sitting on money, we'll have a chat.
I think just one follow-up question, and I can probably, that do you see change in skill sets? You've been in the industry, Sandeep, for a long time. So with you, Priti and Pravin, but do you see a change in skill sets as you look at the operations team or the tech ops team?
I think the biggest change in skill set is in ourselves. Like, there's a whole different world out there. There's a different way of thinking. Like, traditionally, when you have a problem, your first instinct is to throw people at the problem, right? But when you're thinking in the technology world, you figure out whether a few engineers can solve the problem once for all, rather than having large teams that get created. And I think that's a more cultural DNA that we all have to imbibe. And whether we appreciate it or not, each one of us, at least I'm talking about myself, we come from the industry. So we carry some of that baggage with us. And reorienting that is the hard part.
Yeah, thanks. Priti, any thoughts?
I think for us, when we set up Lakshmi, I said I'm the only person who's going to come from finance. Everybody else is going to come from everywhere else. So I think that sort of just also changed the mindset. And I'm glad we did, because we knew that, we wanted like a more, FMCG delight kind of a platform. So that's how we went about it.
No, it's interesting because when we do a lot of transformation journeys now, we are pushed by the clients to look beyond financial services. We've been asked to look at the experiences that you have with the likes of Amazons or Zomatos of the world and bring those customer experience at play. So I think completely resonate with what you mentioned, Priti. All right, I don't think we can end the session, and before I open up for a few questions for the panel about talking about Gen AI and use of Gen AI in your entire life cycle, I would say. How are we adopting? Are we kind of taking baby steps? Are we fully onboarded? Would be good to hear from you, starting probably Pravin or Priti, anybody who want to take. I'm going to ask this question to all of you, so anybody wants to go first?
So I can begin. So I think Gen AI has just opened up an entire world of opportunities. And I think for us, you're right, I think we're taking baby steps because there is a lot of learning that we need to do. The category that we service is a new category, so there's not like a lot of data that's available. So we need to be very careful with how we go about it. But I think we've been very efficiently, we've been able to use it, like I said, for support, right? Sales and support and all of that, really giving, like we said, the feeling of saying, okay, we know you, we know what you want. I think there we've seen green shoots of it being very, very effective. And of course, we've not yet gone out and used it for recommendation because I think we've still not seen evidence of really for it to give you like an absolute, sure shot sort of. But I think the way to go, there is no choice but to adopt it. But I think especially when you're dealing with money, you have to be very cognizant of the fact that you're responsible and therefore how do you take it forward?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Pravin.
I think we are oversold on AI and still trying to find the value of. I think Priti just mentioned that subtly, which is true. In internally for us, I think we are very, very early in those journeys. We do have applications, okay, in customer service, okay, which is currently live and kicking. Instead of going and doing everything what people are trying to do, we are trying to make our own, not an LLM but an SLM, okay, where it's specific to some of the use cases because we're going to solve specifically for stock markets and learning for stock markets or things that you want to do with your portfolio and something like that. Okay, but these are very, very early steps. Okay, as a broker, okay, our customers care a lot about execution, quality of execution, speed of execution. They don't care whether we have AI or not. Okay, but as a broker, is also true that if you are going to use a term AI, I have to disclose to exchanges where I'm using AI and some. So it's a very regulated industry. We are still in early stages. Okay, I think like this conversation, we also get pitched with multiple AI products throughout the day. We are still in between, okay, being oversold and undervalued, and all trying to figure out a balance on that.
Thanks, Pravin. I think just SEBI also coming up with a consultative paper in terms of the use disclosures. Sandeep, where do you see you and Dezerv going and adopting AI in Gen AI?
For the very first time in a consultation paper very recently, SEBI has mentioned AI. And it seems like there is also clarity on where the responsibility will lie, which is the platform which is deploying that AI, right? So I think that's something that we all need to be aware of. In our case, if I use AI in how portfolios are constructed, and Priti alluded to this, there are concerns on whether that model and platforms are sufficiently well developed to ensure that mistakes do not happen. And we are dealing with hard-earned money. So that is one area where, while there are clear use cases, but we have not yet deployed them. The second is in terms of how we engage with clients. And even there, the challenge is that we don't want to miscommunicate. It goes directly to our trust. And therefore, the communication is through human beings. Where we are clearly seeing an opportunity and some early steps have been made is in how we can make the RMs much more productive. how they can have access to data at the right time during the client conversation, which they can figure out whether they want to use or otherwise, right? And I think for the foreseeable future, Dezerv will invest in AI to the extent of supplementing the RM rather than directly exposing it to clients or using it in portfolio management.
Completely agree, Sandeep. And as I said, I mean, as we are interacting, there are more questions emerging, but I'll keep time check and then probably open up. We have few questions which we can take. Okay, I think we can take 1 or 2 questions for the panel. No, are we running? Okay, no worries. Okay.
Can we go ahead with the report launch? Yes. All right, so we have a report launch for Money in Motion, Navigating India's Evolving Financial Landscape with WealthTech.
Thanks everybody. I think we covered almost all the buzzwords that are there in this report. So appreciate giving context to this, but we clearly see that the wealth management industry is going through a foundational shift, changing customer segments, emergence of technology, big tech playing a big role. So, and digital one players like you all, I think, giving a big impetus to the industry as well. So we tried to bring some critical insights into this report and some strategic imperatives for the wealth managers to sustain and outperform themselves. So looking forward, hopefully you find this report a pertinent read. And thanks a lot for launching this.